Every now and then, we come across those people in life who truly impacts us. During my time at Minot State, I experienced just that. Joining me today on the second edition of Familiar Faces is one of my professors and head of the broadcasting department at Minot State, Neil Roberts. Neil, how are you doing?
Things are going well. The last year, of course, has been challenging like it has been for all universities across the country. But Minot State was able to come back in this past fall and have face-to-face classes. And we managed that throughout. Of course, we were on Blackboard as well. But the students, I know, really appreciated getting back to the classroom. The previous spring break of 2020, of course, we shut down like most schools had to. And we were forced to go strictly online. So we, I think, gained an appreciation for meeting face-to-face, and we were, I would say, 80% or more face-to-face this past school year. So yeah, it was nice getting back in that direction, and this fall looks even more rosy. I think we should be 100% back by and large.
Like you were saying, obviously, a lot of universities fluctuate in terms of how they got back to normal, and Minot State was very lucky as it kind of varied by state. So you've been in the broadcasting business for a long time, especially at Minot State. So how has this compared to previous years? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of stories that were to be made. How was it teaching it, and how was it producing this news?
Well, it depended upon the class. For our campus television show, Com 475, but that's a campus TV show, so either you're there or you're not. And when we couldn't meet, we did a bunch of stuff on Zoom or in Teams or FaceTime, and we had students join that way. But this past school year, either you were there or you weren't by and large. We made some exceptions to the rule, but students that could be there were there. And so that went off somewhat without a hitch. And we did our KMSU auction, which is a big televised fundraiser similar to kind of a eBay meets QVC type deal. And we made some adjustments there. This was back, the first week of December, and that went pretty well. So, and then the other classes, again, we just had to adjust. So compared to other years, yeah, it was coming off of a pandemic too, and students were having to readjust, if you will. So all of it was challenging, I guess, for the public at large, and then for some more than others, depending upon everyone's situation. But I think getting back to where we were may never happen. I think we learned a lot from the pandemic and how we can communicate and use Blackboard and use other facilities. But yeah, careful what you wish for sometimes too. I know our students seem to learn a lot more, I think, in the classroom and when we're face-to-face. And our field, of course, Julen, is rather unique. We're in the communication field. So certain things there, you need that person across from you if you're going to be, reading their body language or something. And you can't always see that in a Zoom meeting necessarily, or their disposition or others in the room. And so there's lots of things that go on. But as far as comparing it to last year's, previous to the pandemic, yeah, it's way different, But and it will have some subtle changes going forward, I think. But I think we could benefit from some of those things, though. So that's encouraging.
Well, and another thing is, I think one of the things we took for granted is some of these events that we had prior, as broadcasters took it for granted, and oftentimes, the normal was just normal to us. I mean, you and I are both sportscasters and appreciate sports. How's it been, as a broadcaster? I mean, you have forward communications. Sports might actually look like they might come back.
Well, yeah. So I've done reports on the Minnesota Twins for the last 20-some years in spring training, and on the Vikings for the past 12 or so. And in 2021, or check that, in 2020, of course, it was all different. By the time I got down to spring training, it was the first day that spring training actually got canceled. So that was a challenge back in 2020. And then on the Viking report last year, I was able to get a hold of some NFL insiders. I talked to some fans, and it was really a neat sort of breath of fresh air to talk to some others associated. Not that I don't like talking to players, I absolutely do, and look forward to that opportunity again. But I've always wanted to talk to some fans and some others associated with it, so that was sort of my chance to do that. And 2021 was a similar deal. Of course, on the baseball side, we were allowed back in the stadium. I was given some press credentials to some games, but we weren't allowed to get close to players. it would be maybe a Zoom thing like we're doing right now at most. And I'm waiting to contact the Vikings now. Of course, that seems to change daily. I know the Twins are going to be back to 100% by July 4th, I know. And they've gone from, 30 or 50% capacity to 70. They're having these benchmarks along the way. So I know by the time training camp rolls around for the Vikings, the Twins will be back at 100% capacity. So I have a feeling the Minnesota Vikings are hoping to have 100% capacity for their preseason games. And I'm not sure what that's going to mean for the media, if we should be vaccinated or if we should be having to wear a mask or just that end of the deal still going to be off, or if they want to get us back or some contact with players and or personnel. So that some of it's wait and see. And, some of it, I don't know how it's going to come back once it is, say, what the new 100% go is going to look like with some of the major league, with some of the professional sports franchises. So it'll be interesting, Julen. I know that we're an important facet to professional sports and the media. The media's taken a bad rap over the past several years, and sometimes for good reason. But it's easy. But it really irks me when it all gets thrown into one bag. That everybody's irresponsible, or everyone's a bad reporter, or that the media is totally biased, because we're not, and we all have jobs to do, and some, whether it's a cable network or something, they might have a certain angle that they want if they want to appease certain parts of their audience or sponsors or whatever. But I know I teach in the classroom, as you know, to treat everybody fairly, and you don't take sides. And you can be thinking something, but you don't have to. That's for someone else to decide. You still ask both sides the same questions. You still treat both sides the same way. You write into those sound bites the same way. And that's your job as a reporter. And so I still take that very seriously. And with the athletes, I'm always hopefully fair with them. I've got a good track record, I know, with athletes over the years. So I look forward to talking to them again. And again, my 3-minute reports I'm not in there digging up some of their dark past or anything. I'm there to have a couple of fun minutes on my interviews. And those that know me know that. And I'm usually welcome. So hopefully it gets back to that status again. But to tell you what's going to happen for sure, I really don't know. They're going to have to also major sports, one more angle, if you will, that they're all going to have some measure to get fans all the way back too, because as this pandemic has ensued, a lot of people want to get back to the ballpark, but some others have maybe in the meantime bought a camper or have a cabin now, and they're not going to the ballpark as much. Or for football, maybe they've done something else on Sundays now, or who knows, So I think professional sports franchises shouldn't take other media outlets for granted either, because I think they can help be part of the solution to get as many fans back as possible.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of it's kind of up in arms, and I do think the media is kind of taken for granted, and sometimes there's always that person that's the blame. But one thing I want to kind of go back to, I kind of want to go back in time. You've told me numerous times that you were born in Parshall, North Dakota, and so one of the things I have a question of is when was that moment that you knew you wanted to be a broadcaster, way before you wanted to be a professor for that matter?
Well, I don't know. I think things continue to evolve. Of course, we all have maybe dreams and aspirations and what ifs, but I know I became intrigued by the media. Maybe when I was back 7, 8 years old, maybe, and I started to listen to a lot of sports on radio and Twins games on the radio. I think I shared with you that, I heard a lot of country music my early years. I really grew to resent it early on. And my dad was also a Twins fan. So when the Twins were on, he said, turn on the Twins. And it was at least a 3-hour window of not having to listen to country music. So I probably took in 154 games a year on the radio, I bet, from years 8 through God knows when, through my high school and college years, So I listened to a lot of that on the radio. And it gets you to become intrigued with the Herb Carneals of the world, who's probably one of my favorite all-time play-by-play people. Herb has since passed on, but he's the guy I listened to for a lot of years. He and his color commentators, those were in and out over the years, but Herb was a constant. And so, you get me intrigued even back then, what does that space look like? How does this microphone reach my radio speaker? Just those little things you wonder as a kid. And when you start to figure and learn out more about that, and you learn how the industry works, how you have to maybe create your own breaks in life, you start figuring out, okay, what do I want to do and how do I want to go about this? And I got a chance in 1987 to interview Herb and a number of Twins players and personnel when they were en route to their division title and wanted to win the World Series back then. They were in first place in June. So I worked for a local access channel in Fargo back at the time. And so I got to meet Herb. And back then you start wondering, okay, what path do I want to take in this stuff? And then you just start the grind, right? And you look at opportunities that come before you. You say yay or nay, right? And you're on board. So I end up with so I've had a gifted past, I'd say. You know, I worked a lot in the TV industry in Fargo. I did some of the radio side as well. And then I came to Minot as a TV news anchor and reporter back in 91, 92, and did that for a few years before I got my gig at Minot State to teach the stuff again. You know, and then I did both for a while. And then I started my business, Forward Communication, back around 2000, 2001-ish, and started, among other things, doing these 3-minute syndicated radio pieces. That was kind of my end back in then to represent these stations that I represent, either in agriculture or the outdoors that I do, or preseason reports on the Vikings and on the Twins. So I've got a great group of stations I partner with, and I cherish those folks. They're my team. That's how the avenues has gone for me. Yeah, if you look back, you know, I could have done this or that, or taken a sports job when I had the opportunity to do that on the TV side. So there's lots of things you can do. The exciting thing about our communication field, as you know, Julen, is really exploding right now. There's a lot of opportunities in it. I think people started to see that with Zoom, and the pandemic kind of proved that, right? A lot of people had to go to their website and go to this or that and learn some media stuff on their own. And I can see that you and I are both pretty well lit on our Zoom call tonight, and some folks aren't necessarily. You have to learn how to light yourself a little bit and how to, you know, where's your microphone at? Where's your camera at? If it's going to be a visual piece, what do we need to do for that? So many things that go into different facets of the communication field and some of these opportunities that we're talking about, that it's really staggering. And that's great news for you and my students and even myself here, well into my 50s now. There's still lots of different things I want to do and continue to do and do well. So yeah, the future looks bright. When one door closes, another one opens. I know we talked about that on the phone the other day too when we were talking. And you've seen that in your life too already. So yeah, there's plenty of doors opening if you pay attention.
A lot of content has been necessary, especially in this pandemic. You know, a lot of people have been bored. But I want to take it also a little bit back. You've been in the broadcasting department for a while. So for those that are listening, I kind of know your story. How did it come about that you started a broadcasting program in Minot, North Dakota?
Well, the program was there, but when I was hired, I put it through a lot of changes, I guess. So I went to school at NDSU, and then out of grad school, I actually taught for a couple of years at the University of South Dakota before I got back into the business, and got a job in Dickinson and then in Minot, and that evolved into where I am now. And prior to that, in grad school and undergrad, I worked for the CBS affiliate, KXJB in Fargo, and some radio stuff for Dakota Sports Network. I have a lot of experiences before I took the job at Minot State. When I took the job, their TV studio had been black for 7, 8, 10 years. I don't know, for quite a while. They haven't even used the TV studio. They had a campus radio station that was working on carrier current. I knew that couldn't work long term. There were a lot of challenges when I took the program on. As I've shared with you and some of my other students, I've always tried to teach the way that I would want to be taught. I try to put myself in the student's chair, and I know what's worked for me, how I've gotten better in this field, and how I know some of my colleagues have gotten better in this field. So that's what I try to bring to the classroom and to my students is, you know, ways to get better as quickly as we can, and how to make sure that when we get repetition, that we can maximize that repetition and learn from that repetition. And because we're our own critic a lot of the times, you know, we don't have somebody there that might be listening and giving you feedback on it right away, because it probably is our parents or somebody who's like, yeah, you sounded great, but they really don't know how you sounded great or if you improved or how you improved. Like you and I can kind of put our finger on that when we hear somebody from one telecast or radio cast to the next one. well, I know how they got better. I could tell by just these different facets of how they improved. So that's what I've tried to do at Minot State. So I started a TV studio back then in the 90s, and they got the radio station actually over on the local access channel then, so that we had a good signal all the time. So we have a good partnership with Mid-Continent Communication on that end of it, and we run the local access channel then for the city of Minot, so we're live with that thing all the time. So yeah, it's been a great deal for our students then. So then we just keep piecing it together and keep growing. But those were the first things I did, I guess, is I knew we had to get a TV station and a TV studio back. I knew we needed a few cameras and some editing gear. I knew we needed to have a campus radio station that had a signal or some sort of end game that was there for an audience, that our students knew they were going out to, at least a potential audience. So those were the things we did on the short term that have helped us grow long term, I guess.
And like you said, you started the program in the 90s. Obviously, we live in the age of technology. How has the technology evolved throughout the years? One time I was in the radio booth and they had, cassettes, and how has it changed throughout the years, and how have you adapted to that?
Yeah, so the old days of analog. So I learned to edit audio on reel-to-reel tape. So you actually have these reels. You would have two reels. There'd be an intake and a supply reel and a take-up reel. In there, they had the heads between the two reels that the tape fed through. You'd have a little edit button you could hit, and you could actually hear that woo woo and the sound of your cough or the word. You'd have a grease pencil. You'd actually mark it off the head then, and then you'd find the other part where you want to cut the tape and mark that again. And then you'd hit this little edit button, and it would slack up the tape and actually physically cut the tape and tape back together again, and the cough would be gone. If you had a bad edit, you had to find that tape again and put it back in again and try to recut it. So now you guys highlight it and hit delete, and it's gone. And so, yeah, it's pretty slick now with the digital age. So it's come a long way, and it continues to grow. And who would have thought even digital? Some of the digital stuff that you thought would be here forever has already disappeared. So you talk about CDs and DVDs. I mean, that was such a breakthrough. And on a little disc, you're thinking, well, this is here forever. That's the golden key right there. We've discovered it, and you can't get any more efficient than that. And it turns out we can, with stored data on a computer or a phone or on a chip or something like that. So it just becomes more and more fascinating, and as this industry continues to grow. So I gave up on figuring out where the end game is on this deal, because there isn't one. It just keeps reinventing itself. So for an old guy like me, it's tough to keep up with all the technology, but it's sure fun to watch, and I love to tag along with it. My students are learning a lot from it and how to use it, grow with it, get good stuff, other portfolios and that sort of thing, given this technology. Even like YouTube. I mean, in my office, you've probably seen some of those little digital tapes that I had and some of the video cassettes we had from the old days. I've got all this storage. That was always a battle trying to figure out how can we store all these episodes. It was just mind-boggling. Then YouTube comes along, and we actually have a free device, if you will, to log all of our shows now. And if someone wants to find out a show, they just punch in the date and the year, and boom, it's on YouTube somewhere. It's improving all the time, too. Some of the naysayers might not like some of these new innovations, but in the long term, the short term, they've got to be tried and true. So nothing stays around too long if it's not going to be better. So some things have failed over the years, too, that I've seen come and go. And it's amazing, too, that each year these things get moved up with innovations become greater in quicker lengths of time. But it used to take a decade to do, now maybe happens in a week that the new iPhone comes out and there's something new on it to be able to do this, that, or another thing that normally would have taken quite a while to undertake. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, though, but it's evolved, I guess. So to pinpoint it from one time to this time is tough to do, but it's been fun to watch it grow over the last 25 years in the classroom.
And one thing I want to ask you is, for Minot, you've had a lot of great broadcasters that's come out of the program. I've obviously met some of them. What's your formula to develop such great broadcasters?
It's back to getting them involved early. So I don't like when certain programs have, or they make students wait, Yeah, some things you have to wait. You just can't jump into you can only take 4 or 5 classes a semester, so some things take a little time to iron out. But we have no rule that says that you have to be a junior or senior to touch equipment or to be on air or to try out for this or that. So you have to be a member of our 475 show to do that, but I let sophomores do that. Once they've had TV1, they're eligible to get into that. I let them take top TV1 Com 360 as a second semester freshman, which you probably did, Julen, when you were at Minot State already. And boom, and then if you take Radio 1 and TV 1 your freshman year, you learn all of our facilities. And that's my goal now. I've kind of changed as an advisor over the years, too. Sometimes we're worrying about getting all that gen ed stuff done pretty early in the game. I still like to have that done as an advisor, but I also know the importance now of feathering in layers of the content of our major as well, because that's what they're there for. That's what they grow from. After that, the key to success then is repetition. We all get better with practice, and you can only talk about it so long in the classroom. So the best teacher is practice and repetition, and you going out and doing 50 television or radio basketball games is going to teach you a lot more than we can talking about in the classroom. So what I want to do in the classroom in my class is get you going on those repetitions, and then trying to, like the play-by-play class that we had, for instance, trying to teach everybody, okay, when you do a basketball game, here's how you prepare for it, here's how you get ready for it, and here's how you critique yourself, right? So those are all really good lessons, how to prep, how to get ready for it, and how to critique. And then when the class is done, everybody's got a foundation then on how to get ready for a game, how to do a game, and then how to reflect upon your performance. Was I talking too fast? Did I set up this play real well? Did I bring in my color analyst at the right time? Did I blow a great home run call or a goal or something, And this, how do I get better at it, right? So that's how we get better at this stuff. So it's no big secret. I think, to me, it's sort of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And that self-actualization, like you never attain it. Well, the same in the field of broadcasting. So for those students and or professionals that come into that think, okay, I've got this now, I know how to do that, that should never be your attitude. Even if you've done thousands of games in, say, football, like you always want to make if you've done 2012 games, you want to make 2013 better, That's the key, to stay hungry, to learn the basics and learn how to critique yourself, and then welcome other people's advice and learn from it. And just don't think that, they don't know what they're talking about. And maybe they don't, but whether someone's giving advice on something, but listen to it, gauge it, and really weigh that out a little bit. Because a lot of people are there to help you. So I've had a lot of great mentors over the years that have helped me. And I think back to those times when I really improved. And again, so that's what I want to bring back to the classroom, is how I really improved, how I improved quickly in certain areas, and then give our students that opportunity.
That's very important, when it comes to critiquing whatnot. And one of the things that you highlighted is you need a mentor. You need someone to take you through it and whatnot. I want to share a story with you. I don't know if you remember this. About my junior, senior year, I remember there was a story that came out about me in the newspaper about me as a broadcaster. I didn't think it'd really leave the community, but one night I get a call from a North Dakota number. And surely enough, it was you. You really just talked about my broadcasting career. You got to know me and whatnot. And you just really wanted to know my goals as a broadcaster. And I remember just saying to myself, wow, this professor really cares about my career and where I'm going. The question I have for you is, how does that play out? Is that kind of a strategic thing, or is that just something that just kind of happens?
I think it just sort of happens. You can't really strategize that. I become close to a lot of our students. We're small numbers in our programs, so I get to know everybody. My goal is not to be friends with everybody. If that happens, great. Sometimes students leave the program. They probably hate my guts because I stayed on it or something. But I'm only trying to help. And some students take the criticism better than others. Most take it very well, obviously. And those are the people that you mentioned. A lot of them have really gone on to great careers in the field. So I'm proud of them, proud of that facet. So it just happens. You get to know each other and your relationship grows. But I always want to be that person they can call. So I get my cell phone out to all my students. I want to be a part of their growth, and they respect my time by and large, and they kind of know when to call and what's a fair ask, so to speak. In the end, I'm all for, if I give an extension on something for a project or this or that, I really want to teach that, the world of broadcasting, if you're not there for a 7 o'clock game, they don't hold the game up because the broadcaster's not ready. It goes on without you, or when you get hooked up, you join in progress. Life does not stand still. So we go live at 5 o'clock for our campus TV show. We have, out of the hundreds and hundreds of shows we've done, we've maybe gone on late a couple times only because of our technical difficulty, not because students weren't ready to do the show. If they're there and that button gets pushed at 5 o'clock, ready or not, here we come. So some days it's a really bad day of hide and seek, and some days it's a good one. But other times, yeah, I figure it out, depending upon the student situation, if they have an excused absence or even something that might not fit under, it might be in a gray area. I know the only way they're going to get better is by doing that project. They're not going to get better by me just flunking them in that project and then going on to the next one. So I try to have them still do stuff because that's how they're going to get better. Not from my grade, not from what I write on a piece of paper necessarily. Hopefully that helps alert them to a couple things to do better. It's getting that repetition that we talk about in doing it. So I guess that's what I offer my students. That, yeah, they're going to get to know me, not like me, or whatever, and that doesn't concern me as much anymore as maybe it did in my earlier years. I'd still rather be liked than not liked, I guess. But I know as long as I'm helping them get onto that next step, I know that's my biggest goal. And having them leave Minot State University a better broadcaster and with a lot more upside than when they came in, and with a lot more rapid growth to hopefully ensue quickly when they get that opportunity.
I want to leave you off with one question. For future broadcasters out there, those in high school, those loving sports, or just listening to the news such as you and I, just what's one piece of advice you would leave them off on if they want to pursue this goal?
Well, I guess a couple things that go hand in hand. Number one is to go for it and to absolutely do it. I'm glad I did. I made that decision when I was a sophomore in college back when. And I'm so thankful that I just jumped in with both feet. And back then it was a little more risky, I guess, because now there's so many positions in the world of communication, which leads to my other point is to keep your options open also. I already know for like you, Julen, you're a great play-by-play person already, and I know you have pretty good TV skills too from some classes we've had, and you're a pretty good writer and communicator, even though I'm not sure if you realize this fully yet, but that really sets you up to do well in a lot of jobs out there. Whether you're doing play-by-play or you're helping a local bank with their web content on the video audio side down the road, that might pay a lot better because it's a corporate job, It's nothing you thought you'd be doing maybe, but who knows what road might take you to, a certain result. And that's the beauty of this thing right now for communication folks. Even our new program in sports communication that we're offering at Minot State now, if our students don't get into something in sports, it's not going to be a train wreck. It's still going to be a blessing because they're going to have a skill set that is really applicable in a lot of different areas. And that's what they're going to realize. And that's what a lot of employers are starting to realize too, that, say web content, for instance, used to be the icing on the cake maybe for a company, including mine like Forward Communication. But for the companies that are putting a lot of money into trying to attract an audience to that web content, you really have to ask yourself, what do we have there when they get there? And if you don't have a lot of audio video there, I would say not 100% of the time, but by and large, that your web content isn't there then. You need to really look at that. You need to get professionals in, like my students and my future graduates, that can help you construct those messages. It's not that easy to do. And there's writing involved, there's lighting involved, there's shooting involved, there's editing involved. And bottom line is there's a lot of storytelling involved. You have to learn to become a good storyteller using these different devices and media. That's what I want my students and those that get into this field to realize, that there's lots of doors that might open up. Those doors, in my view, are a lot better openings than maybe some things that if you've gone a different path in life. Nothing against other occupations. I know I found one that I really like in the communication field. And I know if I was getting paid really, really well as an accountant, I might like my paycheck, but I would look forward to Fridays and probably dread Mondays. Man, I haven't hated a Monday in a lot of years, I'll tell you, because it's the same as Friday to me. It's just another day of the week. And I'm already looking forward to that Monday when my Friday ends. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy the weekend, but I'm ready to roll again on Monday. And some occupations, they're not. They're like, oh my God, Monday. Oh, thank God it's Wednesday, it's hump day, and we only got 2 more days till the weekend. And I can tell most of my students didn't think that way either. I mean, they were ready on Thursday's show when that would end, for instance. Our post-production meeting, they're already talking about next week's show. Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're kind of getting ready for that, you know. I know you and I, we did in our sports TV class, we had that every other Monday sports TV show. I can tell you guys were ready to roll on that Monday. You weren't hating that. And I can tell by that Friday that you guys were thinking about that show on Monday. So that's what's really makes my day, I guess, as a professor, is seeing people like you guys take that stuff in and share my, area of excitement in that stuff and my passion that I have for it. I can tell that starts to grow in my students. Then I know you guys are going to be okay. Once they have that passion, that's the game changer, as you know, and I can tell you have a passion for it, Julen, so you're going to be fine no matter what. And most of my students are going to be fine because they have a passion for it, so they'll figure things out. But for those that don't have a passion for what they want to do in life, then they may hop through some different big-time 180s, which is okay, too. I mean, bounce around till you find something you like in life. But if someone thinks that this might be something fun, I can tell them it is. It is challenging, and it's also a lot of work, as you know, Julen. But it's fun work. And if they're willing to put in that fun work, then the other fun comes. It's a great way of life. So that would be my thought on that.
100%. Broadcasting isn't easy. People listen to the podcast or they listen to the show and they don't realize the amount of work that you put into it. But one thing that I could say for certain, and I know you'll never say this because you're a humble person, but you've put a lot of time into Minot State. When it comes to a good show, you have to put a lot of time and effort into it. And I think that's the beauty of it, is broadcasting is an art. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of fun. It can be challenging, a lot of hoops and circles, but that's just the name of the game, and that just comes with the broadcast. I just want to thank you for being on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you on. And for those that are just thinking about being on the show, it truly is a fun time. I would recommend Minot State for those of you that are wanting to really tiptoe into the field, because honestly, I'll never forget that call that I had. And I just started off as a radio person. I truly learned almost everything about broadcasting from that program. So, Neil, it's always a pleasure to have you on, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Julen, for having me, and keep up the great work. You have a great future ahead of you, and are excited to see that play out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, head of the broadcasting department, Neil Roberts. Thank you for listening to another edition of Familiar Faces. I'd like to give a special thanks to our audio producer, Seth Torgerson. For future content, like and subscribe to my new YouTube channel, Familiar Faces.